Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our second session of our 4-week nutrition program. So I know that we do have some new faces with us this evening. We're in the middle there. So you're welcome, and thank you very much for joining us. My name is Shannon Mcguire, and I'm the program executive at Business in the Community in Northern Ireland. And I work on a program called RETHINK. And RETHINK is an initiative that was created just to really increase resilience physically, mentally, and socially. So under that physical aspect, we are delivering this nutrition series, and we're so delighted that we have Jade Bradley, a nutritional therapist from Restore Nutrition. And if anyone was on last week, you will know that it's just a jam-packed hour full of interesting facts and knowledge. So last week was all about hydration and fluid. And I don't know about you, but I was just kind of looking at the glasses of water all week thinking I need to do what Jade said. So Jade's going to ask you how you got on with that. This week, I suppose, is more about toxins and processed foods. And just like last week, ask questions throughout, and Jade will stop every so often and we can answer those. And I think it's great, Jade, you'll probably agree with me that people are asking questions. We love to see them. It really lets us know that that you're interested in it, that it's something out there that we need to talk about maybe more. So we love the questions, so keep doing that. But without further ado then, I will pass you over to Jade for the rest of the session.
Thank you very much, Shannon, and good woman for getting on your water after last week. On that note, I just wanted to check in and see how everybody was getting on with their water challenge, and if people were, using their little chart, and how you got on with your mini caffeine task. So if you can all pop how you're getting on in the chat box, and I'll go through a few slides and then I'll check in with Shannon and see what the feedback is with that. And then the same as last week, I'll have natural breaks throughout, and I'll check in with Shannon for any questions. And so then, yeah, do exactly the same as what you did last week. We might cover some of the things that you had questions on last week that maybe I didn't get to answer. And like Shannon said, we totally encourage questions. I'm delighted to see questions and see such an array of different questions, because it shows that you're all interested and you're eager to learn about the different things to do in nutrition and how it benefits our health. So definitely encourage the questions. So this week, like I said, we're going to be talking more about elimination and detoxification and processed foods. So, words like detox, detoxification, fasting, elimination diets, we might hear them quite a lot, but do we actually understand what they mean? So what is detoxification? It is the process of transforming a toxin to a less harmful or water soluble state. So you're probably thinking, right, what does that mean to you? So if we're unable to support detoxification, it can result in a high toxic load. Again, you're probably thinking, what's toxic load? How does that affect me? So I'm going to cover all of these things in this session this week. But before I do that, I want to check in with Shannon just and see any feedback on the task. Is there any feedback?
There is. So I'm so proud of everyone. There's people here that said that they've ditched coffee, that they're only drinking a cup of tea and water. Another person said that it was actually just more of a habit than a need, so they've just become more mindful. It was really just, I suppose, raising that awareness from last week is all they needed. Another person initially drank more coffee than water, so ended up in negative numbers, improved over the week, but still a long way to go, which is absolutely fair. It's not easy. And then some people are drinking green tea, decaf tea, and just hot water and lemon and ginger, as what you said last week. So really good to see.
Very good, everybody. And yeah, like definitely, it's a process. You can't get to the finish line like straight away. You just work through, the different phases. You cut down, see what works for you, and yeah, just keep doing that. That's brilliant, and I love to hear that. And it's it's all about those little changes, and that's what this program is aimed at doing, building up all your, building up all your positive habits and behaviors and allowing them to, feed into a long-term life and nutrition plan rather than a short-term diet or, something like that. So brilliant, I'm delighted. So I'm going to be expecting good things for all the little tasks now because everybody started off so well. Thank you, Shannon, for that. Right, grand. I'll keep going on with these slides. So before I get into, the different things that I just talked about, I want to tell you a bit of a story. So a guy came to me for nutrition advice. So I'm calling him Bob. That's not his real name. It's a name made up just for confidentiality. So Bob was in his 30s and he wasn't having much enjoyment out of his day-to-day life. He had really bad nasal congestion and a mucus buildup. I know it sounds a bit gross, but a lot of people suffer from this on a daily basis and just accept it as a normal, when really there are things that we can do about symptoms like these. He also had a really bad continuous stomach pain and sickness, which was massively affecting his energy levels. Sorry, I went on a bit far there. So all these symptoms were affecting his ability and his motivation to show up for work. He had a lot of time off. A lot of time he was just spending in his bed during the day. He was struggling to do much more than just laying about the house. He wasn't able to do any of his hobbies that he loved to do, like outdoor activities. So he knew that he had an intolerance to dairy and he tried to avoid this as best as that he could. So he was eating a mostly plant-based diet, but he was eating a lot of bread, pasta, and drinking 2 or 3 diet fizzy drinks a day. So he was drinking 2 to 3 glasses of water a day, and he was also drinking 4 cups of tea a day. So from last week, you'll know that he was in a negative equity with his water intake. So that was something that we had to work on. And he was avoiding alcohol because whenever he had it, he noticed his nausea got worse by around 10 times more than what it normally was, just when he had a few beers. So he was really at his wit's end. Whenever he came to see me, he was just willing to do anything that I suggested to help him, make changes to his diet that would help positively benefit his health. So I had him do a food intolerance test. I know we talked a tiny bit about these last week, but we also had him do a deep dive into his medical history, family history, and I looked into his eating habits as well. So keep Bob in mind. That's all I'm going to tell you about Bob for now. I will give you an update on him at the end of the session, but just, you can kind of think about the things that could be going on with him throughout the things that we're talking about today. So I mentioned toxic load at the start there. So what does a high toxic load look like in the body? Some signs, include digestive issues. Things like, digestive issues can include things like bad breath, which is known as halitosis, a bitter taste in your mouth, bloating, issues with stools, constipation, diarrhea, intolerances to fatty foods, tenderness and swelling around the liver area, which is on the upper right hand side of your abdomen, and things like gallbladder issues as well, immune system reactions, things like food allergies and intolerances, skin issues like eczema, psoriasis, acne, rashes. So just because these are presenting on your skin and externally doesn't mean that that's where they're initially starting. Normally they're driven by things like gut inflammation, so things like asthma as well, hormonal imbalances, including stress management issues, infertility, PMS, being overweight, anxiety, depression, mood disorders. So it can also affect our nervous system, which can result in headaches, poor memory and concentration, sleep issues, inability to fall asleep, stay asleep, wake up feeling refreshed, which we will cover more in the 4th session that we're doing. So along with some other more serious cognitive issues like Alzheimer's and dementia. So it's not saying that a high toxic load is the only thing that causes any of these conditions that I've just mentioned, but it is a big contributing factor. So it's something that we want to be aware of. So what's the best way to reduce our toxic load? The best way that we can approach our toxic load, our health and well-being in general, is with a holistic approach. So that's the same as what I would recommend for any physical or mental health condition. So Holistic care is described as a behavior that recognizes a person as a whole. So we're not just looking at a condition or a disorder. We are looking at that person as a whole and seeing what we can do to improve their health and well-being. So it acknowledges the importance of the synergy between an individual's biological, social, psychological, and spiritual aspects. So it's taken everything into account. So holistic care includes a wide range of approaches, including medication, education, nutrition, communication, self-help, and complementary treatments. So this is why there's no one-size-fits-all diet or protocol that we should all follow, because we're all so different, and we all need different things to help us on our journey towards health and well-being. So I found this study that researched nurses looking after patients in a hospital. So they compared holistic nursing, which included understanding the patient, showing compassion, building a bond with them alongside supporting their routine medical care, versus traditional medical nursing. So holistic care increased self-awareness and self-confidence in patients and allowed nurses to better understand the effects of an illness on a person's entire life and his or her true needs. So it also improved harmony between mind, body, emotions, and spirit in a hospital environment. So, it just shows that by providing that level of holistic support, how beneficial it is to health and well-being in any setting. So on a physical health side, a lot of therapeutic protocols focus on optimizing digestive function, supporting liver function, kidney function, supporting our skin and our lymphatic function, and monitoring our overall health and well-being. So it's always looking at that overall approach. So I get asked a lot of questions about nutrition, about health, about well-being, and this is one example of a holistic approach, and how if we don't follow a holistic approach, how it may result. So someone came to me and told me that they were trying to lose weight and that they were working with slimming groups on and off for years. They hadn't gotten near to their goal. They had gotten near to their goal weight, but they never got to the actual goal, and they never kept the weight off long term. So what stands out here to me is that the slimming group is only focusing on one element of weight loss, which is calorie control or points, or whatever way they decide to enumerate the score counting of foods. So although these foods are low calorie or low in points, they might not be nutritious or high in vitamins and minerals. This means that they might not be supporting crucial systems and processes in the body. So although you feel like you've eaten, your body could still be starved of essential nutrients that it requires. So these programs aren't addressing any gut issues that an individual may have, things like constipation, diarrhea, general inflammation in the gut, which could be driving imbalances and stress in the body. All of these things make it more difficult to lose weight. So sleep issues aren't being addressed. Sleep plays a massive role in regulating our metabolism and in supporting our body's weight management. So there's no discussion about stress management, which is crucial whenever you're trying to lose weight. It really has a massive effect on your metabolism. So also in my experience, emotional eating issues drive long-term chronic weight issues. These issues are psychological. They need support from a mental health professional alongside a nutrition professional to get to the root cause of the issue and to truly work through it. So you can see where I'm going with this. It's just showing that, although the slimming group is a good short-term answer to losing weight, it's not going to be a long-term solution for people with chronic issues, as it's not addressing most of the issues that are feeding into our body's ability to manage weight, if that makes sense. So this is just one short example of using a holistic approach, and it's something that I will be focusing on throughout this whole program, is, taking what we're learning and adjusting it and implementing it for yourself personally. So I'm just going to touch in with Shannon and see how we're getting on, if there are any questions.
Yeah, no, you're grand. There's no, the only questions we have here is just kind of a recap from last week. If you drink decaf coffee, does that still negate a drink of water?
It doesn't. Decaf does have a small amount of caffeine in it, so it's not totally caffeine free, but it doesn't have as much caffeine as a normal tea or coffee. So I would say maybe like half. You know, like it wouldn't be like a full, having to have a full glass of water, but maybe have like half a glass of water for it, or take off like half of your one of your glasses for a decaf, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Another question there is, is there any ideas on how to improve the taste of chamomile? Chamomile, am I saying that right? Chamomile?
Yeah, I know that as a bit of a kind of acquired taste, I think. Just adding a bit of honey maybe. It's obviously, I'm thinking this person's using chamomile at night time to relax and feed into helping them switch off.
Yes, and they did say that they were actually using like a cordial, but it had sugar in it, so they were kind of thinking of other ways,
Right.
maybe.
I know it's difficult. Like there are different herbal teas which are relaxing that do the same kind of things as what chamomile does, like, you know, lemon balm, and there are other ones as well too. I just can't think off the top of my head, but I could send through a few kind of calming teas. Just get a bit of, write this down so then I can follow up with you. So
great, I'll send you an email anyway. And then just another person had asked, just whenever you had answered the coffee and how does it negate a drink of water, is green tea the same?
Yeah, well, green tea is caffeinated, so yeah, it is. I would count it as a caffeinated drink. Yeah.
Perfect. That's all. Thank you.
But it has there's so many beneficial effects to green tea as well too. So yeah, I wouldn't say to stop having it, but just have a wee bit more water.
Thank you. That's all questions. Yeah.
Grand. Thank you, Shannon. Right. So toxins can be endogenous, which means internal, and they can include issues with digestion, with our gut bacterial balance, which is known as dysbiosis, if there's an imbalance in it, metabolism, oxidative stress, which is a process kind of similar to inflammation where we want to reduce it rather than, you know, have a lot of it going on in the body, and just stress in general. So they can also be exogenous, which means external, and includes toxins like smoking, alcohol, medications, pesticides, air pollution, you know, even some methods of cooking, like when things are burnt or overcooked, molds, radiation, things like that. So what toxins do we actually have control over? So things like smoking, you know, we're made aware quite publicly that smoking causes cancer, lung issues, and fertility, to name a few. Research studies also reveal that smokers who start smoking early in adult life and do not quit lose a decade, 10 years of life expectancy versus non-smokers. So it also contributes to the disruption and imbalance of many different processes in the body. You know, it's highly detrimental to our gut health and our body's detoxification pathways, just to name a few. So if you do smoke, I advise you to quit, however works best for you. So alcohol we talked a bit about last week, and how it can add empty calories to our daily intake, and how it can be detrimental to our gut health when consumed excessively or when binge consumed. So outside of these things, it will also increase our toxic load. And we want to be mindful of not only the type that we consume, but also the quantity. So the current UK guidelines advise limiting alcohol intake to 14 units a week for women and men. So this is equivalent to drinking no more than 6 pints of average strength beer or 7 medium-sized glasses of wine a week. So caffeine we covered quite extensively last week, so I'm not going to really talk about this too much, and you're all doing great with the task from last week as well, which I'm delighted about. Also, we want to obviously increase our water intake, which you're all expert in after last week. So yeah, I'm not going to cover that in this session. So this is a little bit of a, you know, it can be a bit of a shocking fact, and some people have heard of it, some people haven't. And so I don't have anything in particular against Sam's ham, but I just wanted to share this fact. So the World Health Organization has listed processed cooked meat as a grade 1 carcinogen. So carcinogen being a cancer causing substance. So the reason for this is because they've been linked to colorectal, pancreatic, and prostate cancer. So some other grade 1 carcinogens are tobacco smoke and asbestos. So processed meat is meat that has been changed through salting, curing, fermentation, smoking, or other processes to enhance flavour or improve preservation. So it's mostly pork, beef, or poultry based meats. So we are talking low grade sliced cooked meats like, ham, chicken, beef, along with tinned meats, hot dogs, things like frankfurters and a tin, sausages, some sausages like lower quality sausages, and beef jerky and things like that. So my question to you around this topic is, if we're given health warnings around cigarettes, around alcohol, then why don't we get them around certain foods? They've been shown to have a detrimental effect on our health. They've been shown to cause cancer. So why aren't we given these warnings on the food packets when we're buying the food? So I'm just, urging you to consider, how much cooked processed meat do you consume yourself or your family? Can you reduce or eliminate this? I know it's normally seen to be a quick and easy thing that you can grab out of the fridge to snack on, to put in sandwiches, stuff like that, handy for kids too. But if it is the fact that you're using it for things like sandwiches, why not try using free range eggs or, good quality meat, cooked, sliced, adding salad, things like that. So there's just a few options, like loads of different possibilities with that. But I'm interested to see what people's thoughts are on that and if people actually knew about it. So if you just pop your any questions or comments you have about that, I'll read through another slide and then I'll check in with Shannon to see what the thoughts are on that. If I can get my slides to move, because it's not. There we go. So generally processing food isn't an issue. The use of fire, air and salt allows us to prepare and cook foods. Methods like smoking and fermentation allow us to preserve foods and allow us to evolve and create different food tastes and textures and flavors, which is amazing. So the problem lies with the type of food processing that's used. So way back in, well, not way back, but in the 19th century, food processing took a completely different direction. Its focus changed to making more and selling more. So examples of this are found in commonly consumed products like bread, biscuits, cakes, pies, sweets, sauces, and low quality meat products. Before I delve into, that and the ultra processed foods, I'll check in with Shannon and see if people have any thoughts on the cooked meats and the ham.
Yeah, so people are just writing in, that's very interesting, and that they didn't know about it. What are thoughts on smoked mackerel, gammon, things like that?
Yeah, well, that like I said, it's the process, it's the quality of the product that you're buying, and if it's from a reliable source and stuff like that. Like, we do use processes like smoking and fermentation and stuff like that for flavoring. So if it's from a good quality source, then that's okay. Like if you're getting gammon from a butcher or something, but if you're buying maybe a low quality gammon that's quite cheap and in a multinational supermarket, then maybe that might be more processed than if you can speak to the butcher or the fishmonger and ask them where the meat's coming from or the fish is coming from, and how it's been treated and processed. So I think that's always good as well. I always think it's nice to be able to speak to the supplier of who you're getting the meat from or the fish from, and and also it's supporting local, and also it's knowing where your food's coming from and hoping that it's coming from nearby, like rather than coming from the other side of the world where it's traveled and it could be more processed. So yeah, hopefully that answers that question.
You're actually answering a lot of questions there, because people are just saying, what about home cooking the ham or beef or whatever it is? But as you say, it's just kind of find out where it's coming from.
Yeah, like that's the main thing. I always think it's nice to speak, like I don't eat meat, but like I eat fish, so I like to speak to the fishmonger, ask them where it comes from, like trying to get things more locally, and these are things that we will talk about next week as well too, and then replenishing, including more whole foods. So yeah, it's just being aware about what you're putting into your body, rather than just thinking you're going to buy something because it's the cheapest product out there. Well, why is it the cheapest product? You know, what effect is that going to have in your body? And it's going back to the same thing as like not just thinking about food as calories or points or things like that. It's like, what nutrients am I getting from this? What goodness is this going to provide my body with? So yeah, it's just trying to like have that awareness.
And there's some questions, Jade. How would you understand the quality for a beginner, I suppose?
Yeah, so basically if you just started off, like if you were, for example, consuming a lot of processed cooked ham to make your sandwiches and you're just buying one of the main supermarkets, say Own Brand or something like that, then maybe switch to buying a ham or a joint or something from your butcher, slicing it up and using that for your sandwiches. Or like I said, if you're getting it from the butcher, then you can speak to them and know about the quality and know where it's coming from, and that it's, you know, it's not. Another thing is if you pick up a packet and you look at it, like say for example a packet of cooked ham or like cooked chicken, look at the ingredients, because you'll be horrified to find out that maybe 20% of that meat is got ham in it or chicken in it. You know, like I know I was horrified whenever I started looking at the ingredients of like chicken pieces, cooked chicken pieces, and they had milk powder and all these different ingredients in them that I was like, well, this hasn't chicken, like it's all these other mishmash of ingredients. So like it's, you know, it's always good to just have a look at the labels of products and see what's actually in them and if that's what you actually thought was in them.
And Jade, what about, there's people asking about tinned processed, is that, would you classify that as processed foods, like tinned tuna or tinned mackerel?
Yeah, like no, well, there's things, and that I will talk more about processed foods and ultra processed foods. So we aren't going to get away from having processed foods. It's the world that we live in. You know, it's just about having the right ones. So if you're getting tinned tuna, tinned mackerel, tinned fish can be a brilliant way to get our omega-3s, to get our essential fatty acids, and that's great for our, you know, brain health, for reducing inflammation. It's just about, you know, maybe looking at it and finding out if it's from a ethically, responsibly sourced fishery. You know, maybe, and also with tuna, you have to be aware of mercury and heavy metals. So you don't want to be having a lot of tuna. You know, no more than really 3 tons of tuna a week would be, you know, 3 tons of tuna a week would be fine. Like I don't think you would need to be having any more than that. But yeah, like there are good sources of like tinned fish and stuff that you can get, and I use them myself as well too. So no, they're okay.
In regards just to this kind of question, there's another one about corned beef hash. What's your thoughts on corned beef hash?
Like the tinned corned beef. So it would just be that it would fall into that category of low grade processed meat. Yeah.
There's loads of questions on other things, so I'll get to them as we go through it on the next question time.
Oh, thank you. Great, delighted that there's questions though, so it shows that you're interested. Happy days. Thank you, Shannon. So another wee story for you now, and I'm sure there's probably going to be loads of comments from this as well too, but I can't do a session on processed foods without mentioning this. So on April the 10th, 2010, Sally Davies bought a McDonald's Happy Meal and fries at her local restaurant in New York, and she started a photo project on the day she bought it, and she's still taking photos of the same meal over 10 years later. So when she took it home initially, there was a really nice food smell in the apartment, and that kind of went quite quickly. You know, she put her Happy Meal under a glass dome on her worktop, and it's left in her apartment all this time through loads of different weather conditions, you know, through hot temperatures, humid weather, cold weather. It has never been refrigerated, has never gone in the fridge. It has never molded. It has never disintegrated. The meat and the fries have turned into a very hard material that feels similar to plastic. So does that sound like real food? So compare this to an apple or, you know, fruit or veg that will rot in a matter of weeks. So keep this in mind the next time you're fancying maybe a junk food meal. I think that's puts a bit of perspective on the ingredients that are possibly in it. I'm sure there'll probably be, is there anybody writing down about that, Shannon?
There's a lot. I'm just gonna actually, there's a question here just on the ham again. Is there any suggestions that you would have for replacement of ham or something similar on a plant-based diet?
Yeah, so loads of salads like beans, pulses, lentils. Like you can make really nice like chickpea, kind of like a fake, egg mayo mix, like with cooked chickpeas. Really nice for sandwiches. Is it vegan or vegetarian? Sorry.
Vegetarian.
Plant-based, so eggs are great as well too. And just your different salads and stuff like that. I would say are a nice alternative for ham, cooked meats and stuff like that.
Brilliant.
Mash is a nice one.
In terms of the McDonald's, we just have lots of people writing in saying that no more treats from McDonald's. And some people are aware, they're aware of, how, the negative effects from McDonald's. Yeah. Do you want me to go through the other questions, Jade, or do you want to wait till the next question time?
I'll go through. I've still got quite a bit to go through, so I'll keep battering on. I just want to make sure that we get everything in, and then if we can go through loads of questions at the end anyway as well.
Perfect. Sold out.
Thanks. So let's move on to ultra processed foods. So the definition of ultra processed food is that they are ready to consume, are entirely or mostly made not from foods. So I'll say that again, they're entirely or mostly made not from foods, but from industrial ingredients and additives, and are extremely profitable. So what are these ultra processed foods made from exactly? So they're normally made from, processed substances extracted or refined from whole foods. So things like hydrogenated oils and fats, which contain trans fatty acids that can have detrimental effects on loads of different processes in the body. Things like they can have a negative impact on our cholesterol levels. They can increase our levels of bad cholesterol, LDL, and decrease our levels of good cholesterol, HDL. So things like fillers and starches are used as bulking agents and texturizers. So different variants of unhealthy refined sugars are added, and cheap parts of animal foods can be used quite a bit. So what are ultra processed foods? Where do we find them? So how do you know what foods are ultra processed? Well, so they include things like, burger, like frozen burgers, microwavable meals, some frozen pizzas, ready meals, things like nuggets, crisps, biscuits, sweets, some cereal bars, carbonated and other sugary drinks are always on that list. And mainly a lot of snack products can be ultra processed foods. So they can have negative effects on our health and well-being in loads of different ways. They normally have a high glycemic load, which means they spike our blood sugars and contribute to energy spikes and dips throughout the day. So we don't want that. We want our energy to be on a consistently steady level. But when we're eating these foods all the time, we're on a roller coaster of energy spikes and dips throughout the day, which means that we're going to keep craving those unhealthy sugars to help boost our energy levels again. Whereas if we're not having them and our energy is nice and steady, we're not craving that artificial sense of energy from the sugar. So they're normally low in dietary fiber, which means they don't provide any fuel for our good gut bacteria, and they normally contain little to no goodness like nutrients, vitamins, or minerals. So they're high in unhealthy types of dietary fats that increase inflammation, keeping in mind that inflammation contributes to disease in the body, including heart disease, IBS, cancer, asthma, eczema, and diabetes, just to name a few. So they are normally high in salt, which can contribute to increased risk of stroke, heart disease, and heart attack. And keeping in mind that consuming processed foods in high amounts can result in obesity. So why do we like these ultra processed foods if they are, full of all this crap and they're not good for us? So one of the reasons is they're ready to consume, minimal effort, they're ready to go. We can have them there and then without having to take time to cook. They are appealing to our taste buds, so this is no mistake. They are made like this for consumers to make us want more. So all of the fat, sugar, salt, and additives allow manufacturers to achieve these flavors that they want to have a moreish taste that we're going to crave more of. So they're advertised everywhere. Most of these foods are produced by large corporations who spend millions on advertising. So we become familiar with the products and we grow to trust them. So they're always on special offer. You know, the large corporations that produce them can afford to have them on special offer, 2 for 1, buy one, get one free, you know, which can also appeal to a lot of lower income households as well. And they can depend on, you know, having these to get like a greater volume of food as such to speak. So the reality of ultra processed foods is that we can consume small amounts of them. It's okay if we have them now and again. And as long as we're having mostly nutrient dense sources of food, it's whenever, you know, and whenever they're consumed like that, it is quite harmless. But the issue is when we consume them regularly, excessively, and in high amounts. Also, the ingredients in ultra processed foods affect our body's internal hunger controlling mechanisms and our ability to feel satisfied after eating. So this can promote overeating, which results in higher levels of obesity. So I know that, like, whenever I was younger and I had a McDonald's, I always felt like I was filled up whenever I had just eaten it. But within an hour of eating it, I felt hungry again and maybe a bit sick. And that is because it's not giving us any of the nutrients we need, and it's also probably full of all those ingredients that affect our body's ability to know what we've eaten and, you know, if we are actually hungry and if we do need to eat. So here's another story. This is the last story. Well, I'm going to update you on Bob, so maybe that's the last story, but this is just a quick one. A group of UK-based cardiologists proposed the cholesterol-lowering statin medication should be dished out with unhealthy fast food meals to neutralise the risk of the cardiovascular disease posed with eating these foods. So they suggested that this statin could be sprinkled on top of the burger, or, you know, use it to kind of offset this slimy grease found in the unhealthy meals. One suggestion they made was fast food outlets already provide free condiments like sauces and salt and pepper and things like that. So why would we not offer a free statin tablet or powder that could have heart health benefits? Which is just madness, but they do follow up with this statement: although no substitute for systematic lifestyle improvements, including healthy diet, regular exercise, weight loss, and smoking cessation, complementary statin packs would add at little cost at one positive choice to a lot of negative ones. So they're recognizing that the fast food has a negative choice. Like, for me, I just find it a bit crazy that doctors would even do this study in the first place. You know, it shows that they're aware of the negative impacts of the fast food and to a consumer's health and well-being. So, you know, in context, if someone was consuming one of these meals a week, it would not be too detrimental for their health, and they wouldn't need to kind of depend on a solution like that. But the concern is for the person who has one of these meals every day or just very frequently. You know, I don't have a vendetta against McDonald's, believe it or not. It's just that a lot of the research about these fast foods is carried out around their products. So I'm going to keep battering on because I know there's quite a few questions. I'm just aware of the time. Well, we've got 20 minutes left, so I'll get through these slides so you can have some healthy swaps. You know, realistically, you want to know how you can reduce your intake of ultra processed foods. You know, first up, aim to reduce your intake of fast foods and takeaways. So try choosing a healthier options like a takeaway. You know, moving maybe away from large chain corporations. Try using more local options where you can speak with the staff, ask how the food's made, what's in it. You know, you should have no more than one a week. If you are eating them frequently, aim to reduce to one a week. And if you eat them occasionally anyway, then that's fine. You know, ideally, it would be great if we could avoid them most of the time and have them now and again. You know, try finding a takeaway version of your favorite takeaway. This has worked amazing with clients of mine. You know, people who like a kebab. You know, you can make a really nice takeaway kebab. Get your nice whole wheat pita breads. Get your good quality meat. Get your spices. Make up your creamy sauce. You know, you can make your oven chips. You know, a curry, whatever it is, you can make your own pizza, things like that. Just means that you can still have, it's not about taking away all the foods that you enjoy and you feel like are a treat. It's just trying to have them in a way that isn't so detrimental to our health. You know, using an 80-20 approach. So realistically, we're aiming for an 80-20 balance, with 80% of your intake being fresh whole foods and foods that are minimally processed, you know, versus 20% of our less of our ultra processed foods. So thinking things like lots of fresh fruit, veggies, you know, good quality eggs, meat, fish, you know, things like that are amazing. And minimally processed foods, like somebody kind of asked about tinned foods and stuff like that, you know, minimally processed food includes things like tins of veg, you know, beans, pulses, legumes, lentils, you know, our good quality whole grain pasta and bread. So, you know, these are things that we are going to include in our diet, and I am going to talk a bit more about that next week. So, like I said, we're not going to get away from having processed foods. It's the world that we live in, but it's just about trying to have more of the fresh, unprocessed foods. We want to try and avoid our ultra processed foods, obviously, like the ready meals, pot noodles, you know, our super noodles, frozen nuggets, sliced processed meats, fuzzy drinks, you know, our buns, biscuits, energy drinks, all that kind of stuff. And one way we can do this is if you clear out the crap. Start by clearing out the ultra processed foods out of your cupboard, out of your fridge. If you don't have them at home, then they're not readily available. You know, they're not accessible, and you won't have them. So, you know, that's a really, really simple first line of defense against having your, you know, ultra processed foods. Even, you know, having your healthy snacks at hand makes it so much easier to make healthier choices, you know, so having them in the cupboards and the fridge and your car and your handbag, you know, so then when you're out and about and maybe say there isn't a healthy option to have or something that you know is good, then you have it there at hand. You could try a new recipe every week. So, you know, you can get some nice recipes on, you know, Instagram, YouTube, you know, recipe books, cookbooks, just depending on, you know, how into cooking that you are. Like, I've got loads of recipes on my YouTube and Instagram and stuff like that, and I'll share the channels again, but I've got some step-by-step videos, and they're only like none of them are any longer than 5 minutes long, but it just shows you all the ingredients. It shows you how the recipe's made. And remember, baby steps. If you're not a fan of cooking, don't start trying to cook up 3-course meals every day, because you will get fed up quite quickly. Make a shopping list and stick to it. Supermarkets are set up so that we buy more of what they want us to buy. So when we know what we want, we are undeterred by all this advertising and distraction that we come across when we get to the supermarket. So, right, I'll just tell you what the task is for this week and the wee update on Bob. So this week's task is a food diary. So a food diary is one of the simplest, easiest ways for us to become aware of what we're eating and how it makes us feel. So for a food diary, I'm not like trying to get you to write down how much calories you're having or how much fat or, you know, things like that. I want you to write down what you're eating, and then there's a second page to this, and it asks how you feel on these days, like energy level wise and stuff like that, how much exercise you've done. So it's about then, after you've done this food diary for 5 days, it's literally like going back and joining up the dots. You can go back and say, oh, well, on this day I've eaten more of X, Y, or Z, and I felt this way on those days. So maybe if I have less of that food, or maybe if I, you know, try and cut it out for a couple of weeks, then maybe I can be mindful of if those symptoms reduce. And then it's the really first line of investigation where you can think maybe if a food isn't suited to you. So sometimes we don't actually believe what we're eating until we see it down in black and white, which is actually quite scary. So I want you to work on this food diary over the next week. So write down all your foods, all your liquids, how you're feeling physically and mentally, and write a note of your physical exercise. So if you have any questions or concerns about doing this, or you don't feel like you want to do it, then that's fine. That's up to you. And you know, just write down honestly what you're eating. There's no point in, you know, not writing things down or, you know, missing things out. Just write down honestly what you're having. And I will provide you with a couple of healthy snack recipes So I've got a really nice hummus recipe and a really nice chocolate and oat no-bake bar that you could try. So I'll add those in, and that's a mini task. That could be your new recipe to try for this week. So finally, just a quick update on Bob. So with Bob, we did an intolerance test with him, like I said, and his test came back confirming his dairy intolerance, which he was aware of. It also highlighted some other intolerances like eggs, yeast, for him, and he was consuming a lot of those foods that were causing him issues. So we gave him step-by-step advice on how to support, making the changes to eliminate the foods that were causing him issues. So we also worked on increasing his water intake, managing his caffeine intake. He committed to completely cutting out the fizzy diet drinks. We looked at his sleep routine and included some healthier behaviours around that, and with his exercise. Within a week of making changes with his nutrition, Bob's symptoms had mostly disappeared. The congestion wasn't bothering him anymore, and he was getting majorly disruptive congestion in the mornings that was greatly affecting him. Like I had said, his stomach pain was really affecting him, which was completely gone after a couple of weeks. He commented that he was feeling massively better. His energy levels had improved enough for him to be able to go back to work again and to be able to get back to his outdoor activities that he loved. So this is just a small example of how certain foods and substances can provide a toxic environment in the body, which can result in different health issues, symptoms. So we also want to remember that we're all unique and we've all got different requirements. So this isn't a one size fits all. This is just what worked for this individual, and it just shows how that by tweaking it personally to him, the amazing effects that it can have. But we do all want to, consider that it is a personalized approach that works best. So that's it for this week, and hopefully, you've got some useful information out of it. I'll show, that's my kind of contact details. If you want to try the YouTube recipes or anything like that, and there's some bits and pieces on Instagram. But yeah, so we can go through any questions now. I think we've got a bit of time anyway.
Yeah, so we'll start at the beginning, just back to kind of the coffee and water question.
Yeah.
So someone drinks barley cup as an alternative to coffee, and again, can you just, is that similar to the decaf and how it would affect the water intake?
Barley cup.
Barley cup.
So is that just a hot?
I think it's like a milk.
So is it like a you kind of buy it in a tub or something like that? I'm not really sure what barley cup is, so if they can just confirm what it is, then aye.
No worries. So there's someone writing in about they have problem with obesogens. I hope I'm saying that right, in the body. Do they help retain fat in the body and contribute to any effect? Obesogens, can you talk a wee bit about that?
I'll need to come back to you on that one. So I'm assuming it's a type of antigen that's affecting their ability to manage their weight. So they're saying that obesogens, and is that going to have a direct effect on their weight management?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll come back to them on that.
Grand. What's your thoughts on Whole30? I've never heard of Whole30. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that's cutting out sugar and grains, and there's a lot of diets that I wouldn't know the exact ins and outs, but I think it's a type of paleo diet, and they cut out sugar and stuff like that. So if it's working for you and you think it's good and you're doing it in a healthy way, then as long as you're getting your nutrients, as long as you're eating as much fruit, enough veg, getting all your micronutrients, then it's, if you're doing it in a healthy way and it's working for you, then all good.
So another kind of question around that is, the processed foods a part of the reason why women in their 50s might actually put on weight around their stomach?
That can have, yeah, so it could definitely have an impact for sure. Like if you're thinking about calorie intake, weight around your middle can be like associated with different things. It can be associated with stress. It can be associated with hormonal imbalances as well, which could be down to women being in their 50s, and going through different hormonal changes. So it's hard to say that it would just be linked to that. It could definitely be a contributing factor, but it's not to say that that's the only thing that would be causing it. So like I said, it could be down to management of stress. It can be down to hormonal issues. It can be, it can be affected by, digestive issues as well too. So I'm sure the processed food would have an effect on it, but there's probably other things going on there as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Can you give a few examples of fermented products?
Of course, yeah. So drinks like kombucha, kefir, things like kimchi, sauerkraut, even just like a natural yogurt is, fermented. What else? Sourdough bread is fermented as well too. That has got a fermentation process used to make it.
And can you give us a wee example of why it's good for us?
So yeah, they feed our gut bacteria. They provide us with different strains of bacteria in the gut. They feed the gut bacteria. We want to improve diversity of gut bacteria. Like we've got more gut bacterial cells in the body than actual human cells, and that's amazing. And we want it to be like that. But it's as long as we've got the good gut bacteria outweighing the bad pathogenic gut bacteria. So yeah, these fermented foods are great for doing that. Like I said, if your gut is in good health, then they're amazing. They can have negative effects for people who have got pathogenic bacterial overgrowths in their gut, because they can feed the pathogenic bacteria as well too. So then they can feed symptoms. So if you feel like you have these foods and you feel more bloated, or you feel pain, or you feel anything that doesn't feel right, then just because it's labeled a good food doesn't necessarily mean it's good for everybody all the time. So it's going back to that thing of just, everybody being aware of when they're eating things, how it feels, and if they, feel good after they eat it, if that makes sense.
I think that's where the food diary will come in really handy this week, because as
Yeah,
you say, everyone's different.
exactly. And it's like all these foods are amazing. And it's like, maybe there's that one food, say avocados at a time. It's like everybody eat avocados, they're amazing, but then you could be that person that avocados are not doing you good, because avocados are quite high in histamine. And if you've got a histamine overload in the body, then that's going to exacerbate symptoms. So you could think, oh, I'm eating all these good foods and I'm doing everything that I should be doing, and I'm not getting any better, I'm getting worse. So frig it, I'm not going to bother, I'm going to go and eat McDonald's every day. Or, it's like, that's why the food diary is really good, to join those dots and identify what's working for you. So I know it kind of sounds a bit like, well, what's good and what's bad, but it's like taking it back to that personalized approach all the time, and what's actually working for you. So that's why it's important just to be mindful and intuitive with what you're eating and how it's affecting you.
I just seen somebody that's written in there, can you give us advice on any other foods that are high in histamine? I think that's actually coming up within the next few sessions.
Yeah, so histamine is a really prominent one with people, and they don't really realize. Histamine levels can be affected by loads of different things, like stress, intake of high histamine foods. So things like alcohol, anything that's fermented, cheese, dairy, tomatoes, avocados, spinach, what else? Gluten. So yeah, those are just some things, but yeah, and things like histamine intolerance can present like sneezing, congestion. It can present like bloating. It can present like red rashes. Wine is quite high in histamine because it's fermented, so a lot of people can drink like things like red wine and get like red rashes on their chest. You can get congestion, brain fog, memory and concentration issues. I've had clients who came to me, and this one lady, and she was convinced she had a chronic condition. She had been to every specialist, had every test, you know, brain scans, blood tests, MRIs, CTs, nothing came back. And as soon as she told me the symptoms that she was having, I realized that she had a histamine overload. So if you think of histamine in the body, it's like we've got a bowl, and as long as it stays within the bowl, it's fine. But whenever it starts overflowing, then that's when we have these symptoms. So switched her on to a low histamine diet, and then looked at some of the things that can cause high histamine. So it can be caused by issues with methylation, which is a process that's linked to our detoxification, which is going back to that toxic load and how we can reduce that. So yeah, and she literally came in and hugged me and was like, I cannot believe this. I thought that I was like really unwell. She thought she had MS. She thought she had MS because of all these symptoms she had. And whenever we supported the changes in her diet and you know, got her on the right supplements and stuff, like it completely went away.
Amazing. That's amazing. Another question, what's your thoughts on raw milk compared to pasteurized?
Well, I suppose it depends on the health of the person that's drinking it. You know, you need to be careful with kids, obviously women who are pregnant and breastfeeding and stuff like that, elderly people. I would just be aware of where you're getting it, the source of it, if it's trusted. But yeah, like just take those things into consideration and then make an informed decision as to how you think it would benefit your own health.
Perfect. What's your thoughts on corn? Would you classify that as a processed food?
Yeah, it would be. So like it would be a processed food for sure. Like if you're thinking about plant-based alternatives for protein, you know.
And just to be clear, that is the alternative to meat, not corn, sweet corn. Just to be
yeah. So yeah, corn so is made from soy as well too. And you know, the thing with soy is that soy is a phytoestrogen, which phytoestrogens are amazing in the body, particularly for women at different stages in their life, and at women who have got estrogen dominance in general, which can feed into a lot of different health issues like endometriosis, you know, like different cancers and stuff like that. So phytoestrogens mimic the response of estrogen in the body. So if you produce too much, they can reduce it, or if you don't produce enough, they can kind of up your levels of it. So phytoestrogens are great, and soy being one of them, but it's the form that we're having. So corn is normal. I don't actually know specifically if it is, but a lot of these products can be like soy protein isolate and stuff like that, which are like washed with things like aluminium, which aren't good for the body, which are a processed food. But then, for example, you can get like good quality tofu, which is organic, and if you look at it, it's just made from soybeans. So I would recommend something like that. There's a really good brand in Sainsbury's and Tesco's called Tofu, and they do like a naked tofu, or they do a smoked one as well. But the naked one is like, you know, it's still it's a minimally processed food versus the corn, which would be an ultra processed food. Also, your beans, pulses, lentils, legumes, chickpeas, but beans, all that are amazing. And yeah, so it's just about, if you're having it as an ultra processed food and it's a treat and you have it now and again, then that's fine, but I wouldn't depend on it every day as your source of protein.
And there's lots of questions here about being vegan or vegetarian and alternative eating. And I was just, when you're saying that, how would you know from looking at a package when it says soya? How would you know where that soya came from? Or
yeah, so like it would be like if it's like soy protein isolate, and it's like a derivative of soy, then that can mean that it's coming from that, you know, aluminium processing. It's like washed with aluminium to process it. So if you're just looking at something that's just like it says organic soy or natural soy or made from soybeans or something like that, rather than if it sounds more like it should be in a lab, like soy protein isolate versus soy protein, or, you know, soybeans, organic soy, you know, if you pick a product up and it looks like it's half of the ingredients should be in a science lab or an experiment rather than food, then realistically that's going to be something that you want to avoid more than, you know, consume as an everyday thing. You know, it's not saying you can't have these things now and again, and say you use that corn as your fake away and you're making your fajitas with your corn on a Friday night and that's the only time you have it, then realistically that's going to be okay. It's like if you're having it every day as your main source of protein or plant-based alternative to protein.
Yes, perfect. Some people are asking about oil. What would be the best oil to cook with? And can you give a wee bit of suggestions around rapeseed oil and its benefits, or is there any benefits?
I'm going to do this next week, so okay. I don't want to. I think we will talk about oil next week, but generally, you need to look at the smoking points for oil, and that's what we want to look at with the oils that we're going to heat and the oils that we're going to use cold, you know, as salad dressings or things like that. So rapeseed and coconut oil would be better options for heating. Now, I mean roasting, and even if you're heating something in the pan, but it's always heating things at a medium temperature and not getting them to a point where they are smoking, because then this just increases oxidation in the oils, which feeds into that thing called oxidative stress, which, like inflammation, we want to reduce. So things like olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, are amazing, packed full of omega-9s, great essential fatty acids, but we want to have that cold, pressed, cold on, you know, our salad leaves, extra virgin olive oil, a bit of lemon juice, make a salad dressing with it as well. Really nice way, like if you get a nice olive oil, it's so nice. But yeah, oil is something definitely to be aware of. So yeah, we will talk about that a bit more next week.
Perfect. What's your thoughts on cereals?
Like, and what type of cereal are we talking? Like Lucky Charms? Or are we talking like
literally in brackets it was cornflakes, Rice Krispies.
Like realistically, there are other better things that you could, you know, they have fiber in them, and you know they are going to contribute to your carb intake. You know, you can have things like oats. You can have, you know,
I've just seen they've written in Weetabix. What about Weetabix?
Like Weetabix isn't. It's not the worst thing you could have. Obviously, if you've got a wheat or a gluten intolerance or something like that, then it's something like that you want to avoid. But if you feel like they work for you and you're having them in a healthy way, like not adding a load of sugar, not you know, maybe add in some of your fresh fruits, having a good quality milk with it, or a plant-based milk, or whatever it is you're having along with it, then no bother with them.
Perfect. Someone's actually just asking about frozen veg and how they compare with fresh veg, and asking, you know, is that a method of processed foods?
Like it is a method of processing, because obviously they're frozen at point, but frozen veg are grand as well. They're totally fine. You know, you're retaining loads of the nutrients, because especially if they're coming from further away, you would rather have a frozen veg that's coming from, say, Argentina or, you know, Brazil or wherever it's coming from, than fresh, because at least it's retaining the nutrients before travel. But like the last one, we're going to cover all this next week as well too. So I love that people are asking questions about what we're going to cover, because like these are on the ball.
Brilliant. Some tips around avoiding sugar and any like naturally sweet recipes or naturally sweet snacks.
So I'm going to share a snack which always goes down a treat. I'm going to give you 2 recipes. So there's a chocolate and oat no-bake bar, which is literally just all your ingredients in a bowl, whack them together, then you make these lovely little bars. They're a nice little snack. Now, I'm not saying have the whole dish at one time. You're talking like a, you know, like a nice little portion like that. With sugar cravings, and you know, if you feel like you've got a high sugar intake and you're struggling with reducing it, are you eating enough in your main meals? Are you having your balanced meals? Are you eating enough veg? Are you having your fruit? Because our blood sugar balance and our cravings are, you know, really closely linked, and a lot of it can link to our body craving energy and through a fast, quick release source like sugar. So what I always do with clients that are affected by this is we focus on your main meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner. Make sure you're having your half your plate. We're going to talk about like how your plate should look and what you need to include next week. So we'll talk about that next week. But your balanced meals throughout the day, making sure you're getting all your nutrients. And you know, that's why we get a lot of people who get the evening time, night time. They've cut out a meal, maybe a meal and a half during the day. So then it gets to night time, their body just is like craving like energy, and they'll like just eat loads of different, you know, snacks or sweet treats. So yeah, making sure you're staying hydrated is also important for that too.
Right.
The basics, it's getting the basics in is really important. And there are, you know, some different tips, like cinnamon is really good for helping us to manage sugar cravings. So like what you can do, and I don't really like, you can put cinnamon in your porridge, you could add it to your smoothies, you could get cinnamon sticks and put them in your water and allow them to like diffuse, you know, so one of your bottles of water a day have cinnamon in it. Cinnamon powder and water is not very nice, so just use the sticks if you're putting it in water.
Brilliant. Jade, I'm only going to pick 2 more questions because I know we're way over time, and thank you so much for this.
No problem.
What's your thoughts on protein drinks, especially protein milk drinks that are out there, and even protein foods, you know, bars that would say protein bars, things like that?
It's like, I know I kind of sound like a bit of a broken record whenever I say things, but it's like looking at the source, looking at the quality, looking at the ingredients. You know, a lot of people can have issues with like things like whey protein and stuff like that. So like if you feel like definitely get a good quality, like there are brands that I recommend with, you know, clients with proteins. You know, you can get really, really nice plant-based protein now, like minimally processed. You know, the less ingredients the better. And these can, like, I'll have to use protein powders with clients at times, and we'll make sure that it's from a good source. Form is a company that does some nice protein powders. Sun Warrior is another one. There's a few different brands that are nice. I don't really use them that often, so I can't really think off the top of my head, but like I wouldn't be dependent on things like those protein bars, because realistically they are they are an ultra processed food as well too. You can make something, you know, like these chocolate no bake bars that I'm going to give you the recipe for. They've got almond butter in them. That's protein. That's nuts. That's nice. And then they've got like 6 ingredients in them, like, you know what's in it. Obviously they've still got sugars, they've still got calories, they've still got fat, but you know, at least you know it's like not as processed as what, like you're buying something off the shelf and it's packed full of chemicals and additives.
Yeah. So what is the best way there to tackle leptin, again another word I can't pronounce, levels in the body?
Like, so basically you're just looking at managing your your body's reaction to fat, and it's the same thing again. It's just making sure you're doing the basics, having your you know, your balanced meals, like it all. And it's hard to talk about like a hormone in general for a person, because it all feeds into so many different processes in the body. You know, so there's so many different contributing factors. It's a bit of a hard one. I can try and come back with a more specific answer, but yeah, it's not really a kind of a short answer, I don't think.
Definitely not. And one, I'm just going to pick this one here. So just when you were talking about fruit, is there any fruit that you would recommend for a diabetic and managing their 5 a day, which I think is my 7 a day, is it?
Yeah, well, yeah, for women they say 7 and men 9 to 10. But so low GI fruits, low glycemic index fruits, things like your berries, So your blueberries, blackberries, strawberries, like kiwis, things like that. So you want to just stick to your low glycemic index fruits, because these will have the least effect on your blood sugar levels. So yeah, things like bananas would be, you know, quite high. I can send Shannon a list of like low glycemic index fruits, and then she can pass it on and you can have those as a reference.
Perfect. Perfect, Jade. Jade, thank you so much. I know that we're way over time, so if there is a burning question that we didn't get answered, please send me an email and I will forward it on to Jade and we will get it answered. But thank you so much for joining us, and good luck with your task. It's a really good task, and I would advise definitely getting involved. I did it before, Jade, as you know, and it worked wonders for me. So good luck, and hopefully see you all next week. So thank you, Jade, and everybody.
Thanks, everybody. See you all next week. Good luck with the task.